we finally got a chance to ride the Dominar 400 and we came back really impressed. In case you haven't seen our first ride review, just click here. And now that I've ridden it, I feel I'm in a much better position to answer some of your questions that you had about how the Dominar 400 fares in comparison to some of its main touring rivals. We have got quite a few bikes that you guys are talking about, but there are some which most of you are interested in, and those are, I'm going to list right now. Firstly is the Royal Enfield Classic 350. Second is the CBR 250R. Again, an obvious choice because that's the bike that was one of the first really good touring options which we had in India other than the Royal Enfields. Third is the Mojo, which is the new kid on the block. It's taken the fancy of quite a few tourers here for good reason, and it also now comes with a touring variant which is really interesting. Of course, the KTM 390, because the engine on the Dominar is based on a KTM 390, so comparisons have to be made. And the last, that's kind of a surprise, which is the RS200. But I can see where you're going with that, because obviously the RS200 also can double up as a really good touring companion. So while we wait for my strawberries and pizza, I think we can get started with the first one, which is the Classic 350. That's the market which Bajaj is targeting, a market for big capacity, affordable touring bike. There are not as many in that price segment, and that's where the Dominar fits in perfectly. Or does it? Because if you think about it, a lot of people buy Royal Enfield because they like the bike, because they like the nostalgia that the bike evokes, they like the experience of sitting on a thumper and going about and exploring places, the classic design, and a lot of them also grease monkeys. They don't really mind the fact that the bike might break down, and they in fact look at it as spending more good time with their bike, right? So I'm not so sure if these kind of people will be as excited about the Dominar. But then the rest of the guys who are primarily looking at the Classic 350 as an affordable touring companion now have a very good alternative in the Dominar, because obviously in terms of equipment, in terms of technology, the Dominar beats the Classic 350 hands down. Also in terms of weight, in terms of power, in terms of torque, this one is way ahead. The Classic 350 still is the highest selling motorcycle, selling almost 25,000 a month. Now that the Dominar has gone on sale, we'll find out in the next couple of months. Next is obviously the CBR 250R. As I said earlier, it makes perfect sense, no? It was a really nice bike from Honda, good power, a good torque, really comfortable, fully fed, really nice wind protection, was also really good at sport riding. But then that bike has remained unchanged for all of these years. The Dominar, in comparison as a touring companion, makes a much stronger case for all the various reasons. It makes more power, more torque. It handles really well despite being a cruiser, and yeah, just the equipment, the slipper clutch, the LED headlight, and the price, it's still so much cheaper. It's a good 40,000 rupees cheaper than the ABS variant of the CBR. So that's pretty much a no-brainer, because most people looking at the CBR so far as a touring companion now will definitely look at the Dominar with a lot of interest. The next bike is obviously the Mahindra Mojo, a bike which I think in many ways is the closest competitor of the Bajaj Dominar 400, because it's a bike which has caught the fancy of many touring fans here in India for good reason. It's got a massive 21-litre tank, it's got upside down forks, it gets Pirelli tires, it's got 320mm front disc just like the Dominar, and it's got a really nice smooth engine, really good. But the Dominar also has quite a few aces up its sleeves in terms of it has a slipper clutch, it gets dual channel ABS, Mojo doesn't even get ABS. Also in terms of riding dynamics, I think both have outstanding ride quality, they're pretty close. But in terms of riding dynamics and having fun, I would think the Dominar would be a lot more fun. I'll have to ride them back to back, but from what I remember, the Dominar obviously impressed me a lot in our first ride in the way it handled despite its dimensions. Mojo is heavier, has a longer wheelbase, and has poor clearance. Even though the ground clearance is more, the cornering clearance is less. You are scraping pegs, you're scraping the exhaust. It's not as much fun, but as a touring package, yeah, it does really well. And Dominar does all of that as well. It makes more torque, it makes more power. It looks better, for God's sake. Mojo, some people like it, some people hate it. Dominar, most people have loved it, the design. And also in terms of pricing, this one is priced really competitively, right? So It will be a close battle between these two, but I think Dominar will eventually, there's a good chance that it will eat into the pie of the Mojo market for sure. The next in class is obviously the Duke 390, a bike which we all love. Fantastic value for money, so much value there in terms of the equipment, in terms of the performance, in terms of the sheer adrenaline that the KTM Duke evokes in you. But in many ways, it has its drawbacks because it's razor sharp, a little too sharp for many people. People who are looking at just sitting back and enjoying the scenery, people who are looking for a more comfortable ride, people who are looking for not getting their legs burned. Even the new Duke 390 obviously did look into that problem to an extent, but that's where the Dominar hits the nail bang on. In many ways, it's everything that the Duke 390 isn't. So it has really good torque, but it's really linear. It has good power, it has really good handling dynamics, it's really comfortable, it's fantastic when it comes to heat dissipation. We did not even feel anything even when you're stuck in traffic. And that's exactly why the Dominar makes so much sense for people who are looking at a powerful machine which is not as aggressive, which is not as exciting. Maybe people wanted something a little more chilled out. It's like if the Duke 390 is Virat Kohli, then the Dominar is like Mahendra Singh Dhoni. More calm, more settled, but still a phenomenal package, right? And you can't beat that pricing. And especially with the new Duke 390 coming in, of course it looks so much better and everything, it gets better equipment, but also there'll be a considerable bump in the price as well. So if you take that into account, then the Dominar and the Duke 390 are completely different bikes of completely different categories. The Dominar is fantastic value for money from a touring point of view, and the Duke will basically just take the aggressive quotient, the fun quotient to another level. And last but not the least is the RS200. I'm going to pull up some of the interesting facts that we have here. Does it make sense for guys who are considering the RS200 to look at the Dominar 400? Because I think it's about 20,000 rupees more. If you ask me, I would say absolutely. Especially if you're looking for a touring bike, the Dominar is a much better option because it's a newer Bajaj product. It's one of the most premium Bajaj products we've ever seen in terms of refinement, in terms of paint quality, in terms of fit and finish, in terms of equipment. And as I said, it's one of the most robust products to come out of the Bajaj stable. A few places where the Dominar can complain about, what you can talk about maybe the windscreen. The RS200 will have better aerodynamics. Being a smaller engine is a little more refined, is a little less buzzy. The handling dynamics on the Dominar is just as impressive as the RS200. In fact, the suspension setup is so much better. And of course, it gets 2-channel ABS, not a single-channel ABS. So that's a big plus. So if you take all of these things into account, a 20,000 rupees bump is, especially if you're looking at touring, is not really as much of a bump at all. Looking at all of these bikes put together, I think the Dominar 400 is in a very good position to take the fight to all of them. It might eat into the markets of its siblings, but well, that's what the game is all about, right? It's about survival, it's about who gets the best bike out there, and the race is on. Enough with the comparisons, enough with the number, it's time for some fun. Now I'm going to ask you a simple question, and if you get it right, 3 of you stand a chance of winning, well, the updated variant of this t-shirt. Ready? So the question is this: in which of my videos have I used the line, "Did you notice anything weird about that video?" Got it? So just type in your answers below in the comment section, and all the best.